Welcome guys, I'm Sam Hay and I'm with Rafa Andre and we're at London Trafalgar Square.
Yeah.
And today we want to talk about how to be yourself. So this is quite a difficult topic to talk about, I guess, because I think often when we want to go on a first date or get a job interview and we get advice from our friends or our family and they say just be yourself. And for me, I think it's like the best piece of advice you can get, because obviously it is good to be yourself and be genuine, but then on the other hand it's like, what does it really mean to be yourself? I think one of the first important questions you need to ask yourself is, so who do you think you really are? You have something that's called your ego, right? And your ego is not necessarily your true self, it's like your phantom self. You have your true self, or as Eckhart Tolle teaches us, it's we are the consciousness, and then you've got your mind, and then you've got your ego, and it's your being conscious to not let your ego control or overrun your mind, and then you start associating your mind as yourself, which is not your true self.
The thing is, you are not your mind either. You are just the observer that observe your thoughts, that observe your body. So you are the one that is that you are there and observe everything. That is your true self. The ego is like a self thing that is formed by society, by parents, by everything. It's your false self. It's try to control everything, and you don't give away space to you be yourself. What I mean by that, you don't give space to you, just enjoy the present moment and be in the present moment, live your life, because he's always trying to want something, to be better than someone else. So he's trying to run your life. What I realize is to be yourself, you just need to realize what you want deeply. Discover your values, discover your dreams, and only when you do that, only when you go deep inside of you, you really know what you are, because it's still part of you. So you will never. We think that we can silence forever, but you will just you will come up. I see this if you lower the volume, it's still there, but it speaks more loud, more quiet, and your voice, your consciousness is speaking more louder. So it's more quiet. So when they try to speak with you, when the ego comes, you don't pay that much attention, because it's the voice so low, and so you don't pay much attention, and you pay attention for your true self, because it's still part of you, it's still inside of you, but you pay less attention. You have two voices inside of you. One you can say that is your ego, and another one is your true self, or your consciousness. And they said, the one that you will win is the one that you give more that you put more attention on. But to realize that, you need to spend time to, okay, maybe this come from a place of ego, or come from a place of wanting, instead of oh, that is what I really want. This is my true self. This is my essence. You're born with awareness and the ego, and you just need to know to navigate with them. Because you just cannot put one away. So when you realize that you are awareness and the ego is your not true self, you just pay less attention with it, and you realize, and you just learn how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And see, if you give him less attention, less energy, he will be less powerful, and you give that power to awareness.
Essentially, to be yourself, you don't want to associate yourself with form, which is your ego, and that's the primary thing that the ego does, which can be physical in terms of your body or whatever, or what you have, and also in terms of your thoughts. I think those are the two primary things that Eckhart Tolle taught us, right? Because form can be with the physical, or it can be thoughts as well, which is your anger or your anxiety or whatever. If you're on an emotional discussion, or having an argument with someone, and then you you lose your mind, and you start shouting, you get angry or whatever. When you have this argument and you come back and you say I'm sorry, you're well, I'm sorry for how I reacted, because that wasn't really me. I just caught up in the moment. I got upset, I got angry, and that's your ego. attaching itself to form. When we obsess or we identify ourselves so much with form, so for example with our titles, what we own and things like that, when we lose all of those things, like when we get old or when we lose our jobs or whatever, when we lose that form, then our ego collapses with it.
Yeah.
And it's only once we reach that stage that we're like, oh, so now it's like once we don't have that and we've lost the ego, it's like, oh, so what are we now? And that's when you realise, you were never those things, really. Your true self was never those things. But it needed an event like that to happen in order for you to realise that it was your ego that was controlling you and not yourself. And that wasn't really your true self, as you were saying.
Yeah.
Right, so silence your ego, because your ego is something that associates or something that needs to attach itself to form, because without that, it wouldn't really exist. That's kind of what the ego really is. So it's to be aware of that little voice, as you said, which I like that little voice that you have in your head, and to not listen to it.
Be aware that that little voice that wants to control everything and shout about everything and be correct in every discussion, and yeah, just like be aware of that and pay less attention.
The other thing in terms of how to be yourself is to like don't associate yourself or don't play like a role or an identity when you speak to people. Like if I was going to meet someone random here, I would be myself, but what does that mean? So for me, it's like, well, I don't care about anything. I don't care who you are, what you do, what your status is, anything. I'm just seeing you for who you are in this present moment, and I'm just interacting with you right now. Parents who associate themselves, who fall into the trap of associating themselves with their ego, with their children, and they are playing the role. I know it sounds weird when I say that, like they are their parents, but when they play the role of the parent with the kids, then they're not being their authentic self. They're not able to have that authentic relationship. Like for the same reason why sometimes parents don't want to see their kids grow up or let them, it's because they associate themselves as a mother, their identity, like they're someone who their baby has always depended on them, and that gave them that sense of identity. Like, I'm a mother, I'm responsible for this person. This makes me feel important. But when that kid grows up and flees the nest, then when that happens, I'm going to lose that form. I'm be like, well, I'm not that person anymore. So a part of them feels like they want to hold on to that by not in a bad way, by controlling them, but like keeping them at arm's length, and still saying no, still want to have a say over their decisions in life. And that's them associating themselves with form, and it's their ego, and that's them playing a role.
Okay.
But I mean, it's hard to talk about when you say playing a role of parent. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I don't think we're talking about good or bad here.
Yeah.
We're talking about how to be yourself, to be your authentic self. What is it that makes that new recruit, when he speaks to the partner or something, or the CEO, what makes him say, oh, I really like this guy, he was so down to earth, he's so easy to talk to? It's because they haven't associated themselves with form. When that person is like, oh, he's the partner, he's so seen, he's up here and I'm down here and I can't, I've got to be careful what to say, I'm on eggshells, then you can't be yourself, right? But like when you're with your best friend, there's no, I guess you could argue maybe there is form there, something we can discuss, but when you're with someone who you can just be completely yourself, there is no form. You can feel like you can say, you can do anything without any judgment, right? I don't know if that comes into your ego as well, but I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you are someone who was very, up there or whatever, but if you don't associate with any form, then you can connect with anyone. Have you met people where when you meet them for the first time, when you speak to them, you feel like they're not down to earth, or you feel a sense of inauthenticity about them? Okay. You feel like they're not real. Yeah, you felt that, and I'm sure probably most people have felt that at some point. And I think when you're feeling that in the same tone, it's because you feel like maybe they're hiding something from you, or they have some sort of hidden agenda.
Okay.
So that's kind of one reason, and separately there is another part which is relating to their ego, which is they're not present. Okay. You speak to people before, and you'll think like they're very distracted, or they're not with you in the conversation. He's not like zoned in. He's not here with you. He's not present. So you're not able to build that connection with someone, and you're not able to build that connection is because you feel that they're not being themselves, because your ego, which is associating itself with the past or the future, you're not in the present moment, makes that person feel like they are inauthentic. So to be yourself is one of the things is to be present in the moment, and the second thing was not identifying yourself with the role, because when you do, what comes with that is an agenda.
Okay.
So when you
agenda,
so when you're speaking to someone, but they have like a hidden agenda or an agenda, then you're like, well, this is like, you're trying to get something from me, you're trying to do something, or your mind is elsewhere. I don't feel like you're being yourself.
Yeah.
I think the final thing I'll say in terms of how to be yourself is, so first of all, understanding the 3 paradigm levels of having, doing, and being. It really doesn't matter what you have, what you do. That's not who you are, and that's not what defines you. Because as with what we talked about, the ego and form, when you're on your deathbed, all the stuff that you have, all the stuff that you do doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And this is why, like someone like Bill Gates, or the most successful people in the world, once they have everything, and once they've done everything, like they want to be remembered by who they are, not by what they had or what they did. Like when you meet someone in person, with Bill Gates, for example, I'm sure he would want to meet people that like him, not because of what he has or for what he did, but they just want to enjoy his company for him being himself. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But this is something that I thought was quite interesting. So it's the same sense of, when you're going out on a first date, for example, they see you associating with form of what you have and what you do, and they don't care. They just want you to be yourself. Like how many times when they say, or when you're in a job interview or you're on a date, and the advice is just be yourself. It's like you don't associate yourself with all these forms, because otherwise they just won't feel a genuine connection with you.
Yeah. So basically, what I was saying because I think when they say about being yourself is like be real with your values and your dreams and your goals. You're just like acting towards them, and like you are guided by them.
Yeah, so sticking to your core, knowing yourself in terms of what your values are. Like girls don't care, to an extent, girls don't care who you actually are, as long as you are true to yourself and you own yourself. Or if you're a geek, you need to be like, yeah, I love comic books, I love playing computer games, this is, who I am. And they don't care necessarily what you're saying, they just care that you're so passionate and about what you're saying because you're true to yourself and you're being yourself. And that's why they're attracted to that. Because it's not just girls, it's everyone. We're attracted to people who are genuine. Whereas someone who's not like that, or has an agenda, or they're not owning themselves, we don't really know who they are, so we feel uncomfortable or feel like they're inauthentic. So the how to be yourself is, as you said, know what your values are, and what you like, and know the type of person you are. When you do know kind of who you are, is to own it and really be yourself, and which is not caring. That's what we talked about earlier, not caring about what other people think. So you're your true self, which is not your ego. It's either going to be your consciousness, which is who you really are, or your ego that's going to be running your life. So to be your real self, you need to be aware of your ego and try to silence it as much as you can, to not let it control your life, essentially.
Yeah, it's like one of the best ways is like being in the present moment, and all the time that you try to be attached, all the time that you try to get this thing, you just like be, oh, okay, it's here, that's it. You just like be, okay, I catch you again.
The second point is to not identify with yourself with a role or an identity, because in doing so, you're trying to be someone who you're not yourself in your true essence. In society, we've created these ways of how these people should act, which is not your true self. And then the final point we said is to understand the 3 paradigm levels of having, doing, and being. So essentially, it's knowing that you yourself are not what you have or what you do. You just are who you are, as corny as that sounds. Thanks for joining, guys.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoy the video. And,
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Rafa. And see you next time.
See you.